computer. All right, now I will share again. All right, well, welcome everybody to tonight's Hook Up with Real Estate call. My name is Donna Hook. My husband, Ken Hook, is here. We're your co-host tonight, and we are super excited to have him on here as our special guest. We will get to that in 1 minute. First, want to share from the beginning and let you know that if you'd like to have future notifications, you can enter your name, your email, and optionally your phone number in the meeting chat, and we'll collect it from there. Or you can connect with us on LinkedIn at Kenneth Hook or Donna Hook. You're better off connecting with me because my husband doesn't tend to use his LinkedIn that much. Give me 1 second. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to tell you is that we have 2 ways to stay connected, right? Through a hookup with real estate, and also the replay for tonight will be here on YouTube. So you can subscribe at YouTube, on YouTube at Hookup with Real Estate. And you can also stay connected with us by joining our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups, Hookup with Real Estate. The next thing I want to share with you is I'm very excited that I wrote a chapter in a book, and my chapter is called Harnessing the Power of Debt, Redemption from 3 Failed Partnerships, which is now available on Amazon, which you can buy a Kindle version for $2.99. However, if you'd like a signed copy, I'm happy to provide that at $24.99, and you can either use PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle me. Aman, you will get a copy, so you don't have to worry about this.
Thank you.
I'll just need your address.
Okay.
All right. The next thing I want to share is that starting on September 5th, my mentor and Aman's mentor, Alex Lovely, is running a multifamily mastery program from A to Z in 12 weeks. So the classes will be at 8 p.m. beginning September 5th. There'll be weekly group calls, exclusive multifamily communities. You'll have lifetime access to the replays. It only costs you $500, but it is for 2 people. So you get that for 1 low price. It's great for new and early investors, and there's a registration. You can put the referral name up. It'll ask for who your accountability buddy is and who referred you. So you can just put Hook, or if you don't mind. Okay. The next thing, I'm going to ask Ken to read this disclaimer.
We appreciate you attending the Hookup with Real Estate Masterclass presented by co-hosts Kenneth and Donna Hook. We need to emphasize that the content we provide is strictly for educational purposes and not intended as legal, financial, or investment advice. Participation in this program is at your own discretion. Understand real estate markets are subject to change and can be dynamic. Neither Hookup with Real Estate nor its representatives will be liable for any outcomes resulting from the information provided. Seek professional advice before making any real estate or investment decisions. By attending, you consent to this event being recorded and understand that internet security is not absolute.
Okay. And the last thing we're going to do before we get started with Aman is to read you a quote. We always like to start with a quote. Ken, would you mind?
Yes, the quote of the day: like a great athlete, we must have a very clear vision of what we want to accomplish before we make a move. Vision in preparation for action is as important as the action itself.
And thank you for understanding that was a typo there. Should be must. And so just want to ask if there's any questions before we get started. I don't hear any. I will. Oh, so we're super excited, as I said, to have Aman here. He's going to be sharing his journey to general partner, making big moves. And I'd like to read Aman's bio. So, you know, Aman's remarkable journey is as much a testament to his unwavering commitment to excellence as it is to his resolute desire to deliver exceptional results for investors. He leverages his past experiences, knowledge, and achievements in real estate with strategic positioning. He places himself in influential circles, prepares himself for irrefutable challenges, and propels himself forward by taking massive action. While Aman attributes a huge cornerstone of his success to his active participation in various real estate groups and masterminds that foster a community of like-minded individuals, you'll soon learn it's his drive and dedication to excellence that laid the foundation for his truly inspirational journey to GP, and for making the big moves it took him and his family to get there. Welcome, Aman.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Donna.
So we're super excited that you're here, and I'd like you to start a little bit with your background. What were you doing before you got involved in commercial real estate?
We've been investing into real estate up in the East Coast. We've been, working on our single family homes. We've had various tech businesses. But at one point, it was just hard to scale. When you get to that point with single family homes, and then we started looking into what else is possibly out there. So I started looking into multifamily and about scalability and expanding from one door to 100 doors. And how is that even possible, right? Like, how do we buy $20 million properties? It was never, not even imaginable, not even a question out there. So I have some background on real estate. That's my main bread and butter. I like the operation side of it. I like the acquisition part of it as well. But I'm more of a people person. I like to really get down to the property and work with the contractors. I know what it takes to scale your business. So I'm just applying those same beliefs, same principles at a bigger concept, thinking bigger. So think big and then invest smart.
All right. So once you got motivated to think bigger, what did you do? What actions did you take?
The first action I took, I attended my first real estate event. I went to people, I started looking who's out there and doing this. I started first going around asking even my own family members, our accountant, who's been doing accounting even 20, 30 years. Hey, can you introduce me to somebody who's doing multifamily? And they said, Aman, we're here. I know small businesses. But we don't know anybody who owns these type of buildings. I cannot help you. So then I really, anybody. We have over 100 family members or connections in Virginia. Nobody knew. So I really started doing my research, and I attended my first Grant Cardone Summit. And that really set the stage. That was our first ever conference, first ever event I've even been to. And when we got to that stage, I learned my lesson on day one of this event by a guy named Robert Martinez. He's very popular out of Houston. He told me, he was sitting in front of the event, and I didn't know this guy. He has his notepad, notebook, and he's taking all these notes. And I hear the chatter, oh, this guy owns like 4,500 doors. He runs this management, assets under management. And I'm like, okay, well, if he's here and he's sitting in the front row, I know I'm in the right room, right? There's something to learn from here. So over the lunch, after a few hours, day one, I ran into him and he told me something that I will never forget in my life, and I hope to share that with you guys. He said, Aman, wherever you go in the front. There's a reason there's a platinum VIP ticket versus a general ticket. Who's in the back? They're there doing chit-chatting. They did not invest in themselves, or they'll be ending up in the hallway. You want to sit in the front. You want to pay attention to these leaders. And that, Donna, that set me straight. Whichever event I attended, I went with the intention of meeting that speaker. I mean, we network, right? There was lunches, there's time to network, meet other people, but I wanted to learn from the best. And wherever I go, no matter what other multifamily, leaders there are, I met each and every single one of them. I heard their story, how they started. I got inspired, and I have pictures with every single one of them, but that was my sole focus. And that same drive, it got me into the rooms I never even thought imaginable, right? Like, I was able to just propel myself into that direction by thinking big and meeting these successful entrepreneurs, and putting that noise aside. So
Yeah,
that was my key to get into the right room. Doesn't matter what you're doing in that room. You just got to get through that room.
that's cool. And when was that? When was your first Grant Cardone Summit?
So this is sometime, it was in Arizona, Scottsdale, sometime around August.
Of 2022,
Yes, last year, 2022.
2022. All right, so
Yeah.
awesome. My first Grant Cardone Summit was December of 2021. And I know Ed was there, was a guest here. We met at that conference. So
Yeah, I
Yep.
mean, from those conferences, I think, one point I want to make is many people, even listening to this, they may join these other masterminds. What do you get out of it, right? People are always like, okay, I spent this much money. I need to get something out of it. It's for you to make something out of it. You got to reach out to folks. You got to try to connect. You have to follow up, not just collect business cards. So it is on your plate to take every single action. Nobody's gonna come here and do for you. Nobody's gonna like, here's this real estate piece. You can be this type of a partner. You have to take certain actions. So I did that, and I met Alex Lovely. I met a few others. He told me, hey, come to these events. Come here. Come over here. And I took those actions, and I got involved in multiple groups and mastermind in the front. And I went, again, to those leaders. I know them personally. You think, if I pick up my phone call, I never had these contacts, right, in my contact list. But now I know, who do I have? Like billionaire, millionaire, like who can I reach out to for advice? Not necessarily money, but like advice, genuine advice. And they're genuine people. They will help you. If you can reach out to them, you just got to know how to get to them, right? It's about your resources, learning to use them. So I've just got blessed. I just kept on taking action. If somebody invited me, I showed up. Doesn't matter where I am, I showed up and I just learned. And that was, yeah.
yeah. So I mean that's some golden nuggets that you're sharing right there is, to get in the right rooms, get in the right part of the right rooms and make things happen yourself because nobody's going to hand it to you. Now, I know that you've been involved in several masterminds and you had to make a very big move to get into those. So, what did you do?
Yeah, so thank you for asking that. Well, the day I found out about multifamily, I just had a realization that I had found my passion. This is it. And within those 5 minutes, actually, I learned about going from one door and how the power of multiplying, like the power, the weight of multifamily on how you can scale, and the power of what $1 equals $20 in your valuation. And when I understood that, it was just eye-opening. It doesn't matter if anybody believes in you or not. And I just want to tell you that, Donna, when you have that thought or anybody else, there's going to be a lot of naysayers because they don't understand. It's not their issue. It's okay. You cannot be, saddened by it that nobody has your support because they just don't know it. So when you have to first believe in yourself, and I did. My wife was with me. She had a little bit doubts, but of course, right? Like, what am I about to do? And what we decided to do was sell our primary residence, and solely focus on multifamily. Last year I had an equity. I just want to share that with you. It may be a little bit personal, just getting that number. I took out $217,000 and $700. That was my leftover piece after selling my primary residence. And I spent $217,000 and $900 getting into the groups with full faith, with that I believe in myself and I believe in this process, and just full head in. And I didn't even attend the event yet. So I didn't even read any book, but I just had my belief that I'm going to take advantage of the market that we had last year. The house is going double up. I'm going to take my equity. I'm going to invest in my own self. So my wife was supportive. That was it. My parents were very supportive. My family, my brother, sister were supportive. And apart from that, nobody else was there. So either all I heard was this is not, or they wouldn't pick up my calls. They just like, even my old friends would stop talking to me because they couldn't handle what I'm telling them and my drive for it. I would wake up at 4, go to bed at 3, didn't matter because it was just my passion, but they just didn't understand that. But my family was with me. So that was the most important piece.
It is, and I know your lovely wife, so that's great.
Yeah.
Um, so you join these masterminds and you got in the right space. So, what happened from there?
Yeah, so part of it, we were talking about getting into the right groups, right rooms. I had joined so much. You kind of like figure out like who these people are, what they're doing, and you really have to learn the game. Like I was really focused on, networking prior to like, okay, I sold my house, I got my equity, I'm in part of Grant Cardone Club and these other masterminds. What do I do? I'm meeting all these people, I'm networking, and it felt amazing. Just like, you're meeting like-minded individuals. But where do we take that game from there? And really, you got to build confidence. So then I shifted my focus a few months later right into underwriting. I heard this from one of my other mentors. He's like, I mean, you gotta be the god in like underwriting. Like people, you need to be known. That is your gift. That's your skill. That analysis part. So that's what I did. I went full into underwriting piece analysis. I understood how the numbers work. Can somebody play you? And even if you're going to be a GP or LP and you're investing in multifamily deals, you should learn how numbers work. It is the key to, right? Like, what if the teams are showing you that they're doing 30% increases? It's not norm. How can you're gonna fall flat on your face if you invest in that type of deal, where they're gonna raise these rents 500, 600 per, like 50, 60%. It's just nobody's gonna stay there. How is anybody gonna go from 900 to $1,500 rents? Yes, they can project all they want. They're gonna multiply your money into that, but you gotta learn basic rules. How much is the growth? Where's the location? So I really went deep side into that type of knowledge, not just the networking. That is how I started off, but analysis on the property. And that's where I think I really started excelling at. I started gaining confidence in my own self. I was able to talk better. I was able to look at underwrite deals. I was able to call brokers and make my own connections because I was confident. I knew what they were telling me. So I was just taking that and I was able to respond back to it.
So if someone wants to start learning about underwriting, what would you recommend as a path for them?
The first thing is don't be shy. Don't be shy and not make calls. Get connected with the brokers. Do whatever you have to do. You don't even have to actually call somebody first. Go on like CBRE and get on their mailing list. Right? You're gonna start getting a deal flow, whatever is on the market. Look for basic information. Where are the financials? Where's the T12? Where's the rent roll? There's so many different avenues out there, so many different spreadsheets, calculators. You know, you can learn basic napkin underwriting. What's the basic formula? It literally takes 2 minutes to calculate if it's a good deal, a bad deal, and then you can go deep analysis, where it is. But my first step would be get connected with the brokers, get a deal flow, get sign up for their subscription so you can start to see the type of deals that are coming in the market. You want to get familiarized with those spreadsheets. There's not that many. If you take a look at T12, it's going to show you your net operating income, other expenses, other income that you're collecting, and you're going to start seeing, okay, what is the average tax rates? What are they paying? What are the insurance? And you're going to, as you look at more deals and more deals, you're going to see what is the norm, what's the average going around there. And if somebody's trying to, it's just Excel sheet, right? People can fluctuate numbers, but you will start to understand, hey, is $500 for insurance? Does that make sense? Because right now in Dallas, we're getting $1,400 a door. So you can't, it's only comes once you are really dedicated and you're looking at like 5, 10 deals a week. And it doesn't, you're going to start building the underwriting skill. You're going to start noticing what you have to do. There's so many different aspects to underwriting. What exit cap are you writing to, right? And you will get better. There's programs, you can get in touch again with your mentors, there's coaches. You can join the right tribe that suits your needs. But the biggest step is get connected with those brokers, get on the mailing list, and just start looking at the deals. Look at the numbers.
That's another bit of gold right there. Get connected with the brokers, look at the numbers, and get comfortable. And I think, were you looking at a specific buy box, for
Yes,
example?
that is the most critical piece. When you first start out, you hear 30 units, 60 units. You have to know what you're looking for. One of my coaches shared with me, I want to share with everybody here and whoever may be listening going forward. They asked me, Aman, do you want to do this for your 6 months or do you want to do this for 10 years? And I was going to do a few deals. I was looking at every single opportunity that has come my way. I even flew down and I would take a look at it. I never just like dismissed that opportunity. Some other partner has approached me, but you have to make sure what is your buy box? What is your criteria? Which location and which location will you be going to? And that's also part of the underwriting. You will get to learn. And I just want to make sure you want to go in a class A location. You could have a class B or C property, does not matter, but you want to be in a class A location because that location can never be changed. So you want to make sure the jobs are nearby, what's around it, what are the opportunities, what's the working force behind it. So those type of things. And I'm sorry, I got a little bit sidetracked. I was going
No,
into a
it's
different
fine.
direction over here, but I wanted to make sure I mentioned the location part of it. Um, so those type of things are very critical on your buy box. Which area, which location, the number of units, the amount of these units. Like if you're gonna just look at these class A deals, maybe even 100, they may go 30, $40 million deals. Well, you can get nowadays maybe 62, 65% LTV. What about the other part of the equity raise? Right? You're going to need a lot of still capital that you need to bring in. It's not like 80% LTV that you can leverage. So you have to bring in a lot of capital. You got to really deep dive into your buy box, which area, the amount, the total equity you will need to raise. And now the other piece of it is people don't realize your renovation, your CapEx budget. You don't want to finance that. If you finance it and as you're doing the work, it can take months to get your reimbursement. You want to do that as part of your equity raise, making sure that you're able to implement your business plan. So if all that considered, that's how you define your buy box. Like my buy box right now is, I want to be in a 15 to $20 million range. I want to have 100 to 130 units. I want to be in the heart of Dallas. I don't want secondary markets. I want the primary market. I am the boots on ground here. I'm the asset manager. So I know exactly where I want to stick to, exactly what my buy box is, and exactly how much capital, that difference I would need to bring in alongside my partners.
Right. So But you weren't always that clear about your buy box. So how did you get clear on what it is that you wanted to focus
Well, in
on?
generally, you can have, I didn't really get into fourplexes, duplexes. We did scale our single family homes. But if you start looking at the power of multifamily, one thing this is how I was asked. So I'm gonna ask you like that, Donna. If you have 10 units today, in order to raise that valuation, you have to raise those 10 units by $400 a month. Do you think those units, those tenants will renew at $400? If they're paying 1,000? Likely not, right?
No.
So same thing. What if you have 30 units and now you need to raise them by 150 or 200? Will they stay there or not? Maybe or maybe not. The power of 100 units come at a play. It's the same math. That now with 100 units, you need to raise it by $35, by $25. Will those tenants stay? Maybe, likely that they
More
will.
likely.
So that is a power. And when you start really working on your analysis and underwriting, you're going to soon realize, man, I can have a management company. I can have these people working for me, dedicated to my property, to my investors. I need to get into a bigger deal. Anything slower, anything smaller, it's just going to be pushing down the can. You're going to be working on those property rather than running them as a true owner.
Now, I know you were looking at different properties with different partnerships. What were some of the things that stood out for you, in some of the partnerships you did not go forward with versus the ones that you're involved in now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So just going back to what I've heard before, right? Like, is it a 6 month thing or is it a 10-year long-term thing? Any of these partnerships, you probably even heard this before, or our audience here, that when you do get into a partnership like this, it is a marriage. So when you start thinking about it, who else is in that GP team? What are the roles? Nowadays, capital raising is pretty hard. So you probably see some teams maybe even have 15 GPs, 12 GPs. Well, who's doing what? I've heard so many stories, there's no accountability when you're at that type of a stage. So you really want to vet that team. You want to see their track record. You want to see, and you learn from these groups, right? Like, are they doing variable rates? And you don't want to be in those type of situations. In one of first year, they're projecting 2% cash on cash. Who's going to invest in that deal? Probably like a novice investor, probably. So as you start to see that and you're looking into those deals, and what on top of that, what do you really want to do? For me, last year, because of my thing, where how I scaled my other businesses, I really wanted to do the asset management. I knew initially my friends and family are the main ones that are, investing alongside me, right? And in order to bring confidence in them too, I wanted to make sure that I'm on the operational side to it. And I was going to move. I was going to move to where my location was. I am here now in Dallas. We recently moved here 3 months ago. I'm 20 minutes away from the property. So that was a big key difference. I knew I wanted to be the asset manager. I also learned initially, you really want to build a resume, get on the loan, and whatever, piggyback on the actual high net worth person if you can. And if you can, it's not a must, right? You just want the experience. People can join as a GP, as a LP, but if you can, um, sorry, can you hear me?
Hmm.
Yes.
So if you can actually get in on multiple type of roles, for example, I did the risk capital, I was on the loan guarantee, I did capital raise, I really wanted to do the asset manager. So I tried to put my value out there, right? And not just that, when you get into a partnership, you gotta be fully committed. That was like my key to my success on closing a deal. You want to be there for your partners. Like, for example, Donna, one of our partner was having some hard time capital raising. and they're far from here. Well, we decided to fly down there, meet their friends in for circle in person. No Zoom investing, your Zoom pitches or anything like that. We met them in person. So I spent that money out of my own pocket just to make sure that I can be there for my partner, right? It wasn't about, oh, you committed to this or I committed to this. Like, how can we do this as a group? And that was one part. Like one of my partners, he also, in the middle of all this transaction, we recently had closed a deal. He sent me a late night text message. Hey, Aman, I'm thinking of sponsoring this event. I'm going to be spending so and so much amount of money. That's all he said, told me, and he went on vacation. Well, by the time he came back in a week and a half, I had hired a team. We had the flyers done, we had the banners done, we knew what we were speaking, we had our portal up to collect email addresses, we had our booth ready. And he didn't expect any of it, but I did that because I thought that's what would be needed, right? And that was, didn't matter the cost. I just had to be there for my partner, right? And that's the way my thinking, where people really bring success into their life. If you are going in with a determination that your partners have to be successful, your tenants have to be happy, it's a community. They have to be happy. And if you just go with that positive thought, like you want to make an impact, you want to make a difference, it'll turn good. You will be successful.
That's awesome. And I know that you had looked at some other partnerships that you rejected. So why don't you tell us about what was it about those partnerships that you decided
So it
to
was
move on?
similar, and I'm sure some of you guys may have heard it, similar. They may have not offered me the type of roles that I was really looking for, like as a asset manager or on the loan. It was more like, hey, why don't you just contribute to this and we'll just like teach you. You won't get any particular share, but you can just learn. And when I heard that, I was still intrigued. I was a little bit down about it, and I started talking to other syndicators. I leverage. So you should use your resource when you're, asked to be in a partnership. So I leveraged my resources. I took these deals to them and I told them the opportunity I'm getting. And they just laughed like, what a I never heard these terms before, non-compensated GPs, right? So things like that would come up, and those were just red flags, right? And then also, who's asking you to be a partner? Are they really an asset manager or are they just capital raisers, right? So you tend to like see, are they just like doing a deal to do a deal and like running to the next deal? And then and if you're not even on the asset manager, who are, and you're trying to like raise 500,000 or a million or 200,000, doesn't matter. Well, who's running that property? How you're just going to get a Friday call and you're going to learn from that? It, and that just came later on. It's easy for me to say right now, but I did have to go through that, and I had to vet those deals, I had to vet those partners. But that was the thing, I would, anytime somebody would approach me, I would just make sure I go back to my mentors, my coaches. I would discuss, I would never dismiss. But you get that feeling then, that was it.
Yeah, because I know you're on a bunch of WhatsApp groups too, and these messages come. Oh, we have this property, invest 50,000 or 100,000, whatever it is, and
Yes.
you know,
Yeah. So are they just capital raising? Who's running it, right?
right.
And you want to know where your money is going. So,
That's
yeah.
exactly right. So up until this point, you've made some big moves. Would, in hindsight, would you have done anything differently?
That's a great question. I've been always asked, not to take name, but I've been always asked, hey, Helman, why did you join these groups? Why isn't this just one? And to be honest, I would have spent this money that I have spent down to the penny again and again and again. I found so much tremendous value. I met so many amazing people. I mentioned to you, I never even traveled before, to these event conference. I met Admilat. I partied with Pace Morby. I met Jesse Isler. We went camping together, right? We did ice baths together. And I got so much inspiration from them. I mean, these are powerful, powerful speakers. They're entrepreneurs. And when you surround yourself with them, I am so determined in my life. Like, I just continuously learn and learn and learn. You know, one key to this is like, I just want to share with you guys, like, even around here, whoever's, watching this, like, open your YouTube. What's on your first homepage? What type of material are you absorbing and, as consuming? I bet you mine looks way different than some of the other people that I know, right? Like the things that I'm listening to. So it's so powerful. I would not change any of the group. It was just my journey, and every group has its own purpose. Doesn't matter, all these big names. I'm sure everybody in this is a real estate club. I'm sure there people have heard of Grant Cardone, Brad Samra. They all have such a special, unique thing about them, and they're so great too. They Yes, it costs you money, but it gets you into the rooms. It get you to the network, right? And that's what you want to. And some people either have the mindset and they keep on, they may be ready for it, but they don't know how to do it. Some people are just don't even have that mindset, right? Like otherwise everybody would be doing it. But it's everything, it is part of our journey. So I don't regret at all. I would not, the only thing you would say is like, I wish I had started 20 years ago. That's the only thing I would say, right?
Yeah, except right after the 2008 crash, because if you started
Yes.
before, you might
I mean,
have
you
the
look at
issues
those
like we did.
properties, each unit, right? Like $25,000 a door, and now we're paying $150,000 a door. So
Yeah.
those were amazing times. I wish I knew. That's the only thing.
Yeah, and speaking of YouTube, so if you have not watched Grant Cardone's episodes from Undercover Billionaire, I highly recommend it. That's
Yeah.
what drew me to him. I'm like, who is this guy? I couldn't figure out like what he was thinking. I'm like, this is such a new novel concept. The premise of the show is that he has $100 and a truck, and he has to build a $1 million business in 90 days. And it is so good. It's like it just
Yeah.
opened your thinking for entrepreneurship. You'll
Well,
have it.
let me, Grant Cardone, I have to give him credit where it's due. That was the first person I mentioned to you. I never even knew the guy. I saw one of his 5-minute video, and that's where I decided to sell my house without even attending any event, without reading any books. I just knew this was for me. And one of the thing was, I'll tell you his secret. That's to me was my secret as well. And whoever listens probably knows, is saying showing up. He showed up, and even in the Undercover Billionaire, I know I've seen it. He showed up. And when you do anything in life, like you have to show up. And that really hit my heart, last year when I heard this. So even if you're going working out, can you show up? I hired a personal trainer earlier this year, and he would tell me, okay, I'm gonna get to 8 reps, right? And I'm doing it. And at the end of 8 reps, I would be like, okay, give me two more. And he'll be like, he'll be looking at my face. I'm telling him, give me two more reps. Like, yes, support me, but give me two more. So you have to show up. Either it's for your partnership, it's for your investors, it's for your tenants. You have to show up, and you have to be so committed and determined in life. And ultimately, that's what really hits, you know, that was a success thing for me by just showing up.
Yeah, and it's commitment. That's his number one rule. Get committed first, and then
Yes.
everything else will fall in place. And I see that you're doing that. So let's talk a little bit about the property now that just closed. So tell us a little bit about the property first off.
Sure. So, when we're in these circles, we hear stuff. We hear the bad, the good, and who's doing deals and what they're doing. So everything that I have heard, in the last 1 year, I try to mitigate those type of stuff. So variable loans and all those kind of things. So our particular deal, it's on a Class A location. It's a BC property, 100% occupied, working class families living there. We got a fixed debt on it, 3.2%, 8.5 years left. We assumed that loan at $10 million. We also capital raised $8 million. That also includes our CapEx budget of 1 million and closing fees and all that kind of stuff. So it's 113 units. It's in Irving, Texas, 7 minutes away from the DFW airport. We have an amazing team there now. We did not retain anyone from the prior management. They really neglected the property. This property, even though it's 100% because of the Class A location, but it was neglected. You know, green, muggy pools, landscaping was going bad. There's no, the exterior is getting bad, but that's true value add. If you can notice that, man, it's 100% occupied, but even though it's like not in a great condition, you know something it's like going on there. So we're able to come in there and we're able to update these rents and the units and provide to the tenants. Um, and so our new management team has taken over. We have worked with them. You know, my partner also owns multifamily, so this was our known acquaintances, and they're an amazing team. And Donna, I want to share that with you. We can find all the good deals. We can vet our partners and all that kind of stuff. But honestly, who's running that deal is that leasing manager at that office. She is the one staying there 5 days a week, dealing with the tenants, collecting our rents. She's, you know, working on any evictions, delinquencies, the projects, any open work orders. Like she is the heart of this project. So it's so important to vet your property management company and how they're going to work for you. Are they working for you or is it just like a fee? So I feel like blessed. You know, we have an amazing team out there who's working on this property.
Oh, fantastic. That's great to hear. But I know you're also involved in asset management, so tell us a little bit about it.
Yes. So I am 20 minutes away. Like I said, this was my dream to be on near the site, on site. Um, I learned this in a way, and I used to do this in my other properties too. I would show up at 12 o'clock at night. You know, I want to see how our property is doing, who's hanging out there, what light is out, what bulb is out. If you take care of your property, the tenants will take care of you and ultimately your investors will get paid. That's what we're all working for. Our investors have put a lot of faith in us to run it, execute the business plan, and return the capital with interest, right? Like, but I want to tell you a note about that. It's bigger than that. My particular property, and if it's bigger than that, if you make it into a bigger than that, and you will be 100% successful. So I have taken a responsibility of a 113 unit property. It's 100 plus families, correct? Living there. Almost 2 to 3 people living in each apartment minimum. So that's 300 plus people, plus your investors, their families. So I would say I'm responsible for 350 people right now, right? Their living conditions. They're gonna celebrate their birthdays at these properties. They're gonna use the pool. They're gonna have get-togethers, right? They're gonna have moments. And so it's such a big responsibility. Just the other day, Donna, I was walking at my property. I had an 80-year-old woman reach out to me. We were there walking, touring the property and seeing how the work is coming along. She came up to us. She was doing gardening, 80 plus year old woman. She was the happiest woman. She was smiling. She really touched our heart. She said, I'm so grateful that the new ownership is here. The last 9 years, these people, she's been there 20 years living there. Like they've just completely neglected the property. Their leasing office is just closed randomly throughout the day. We can't submit work orders. They're just like, yelling at the tenants even. Like she was like
Wow.
so scared and she was just so happy and thankful that we have come. It was amazing thing to hear and like just get that blessing and like just if you have this mind, let me contribute to my partnership, let me contribute to the tenants. It's a community. And let me see, yes, we will be raising rents. We will be adding value to that property. We have a fiduciary duty to make sure this money is safeguarded. So when we do our upgrades, we want to make sure, right now we're working on pool pump replacement. We're working on adding a kids play park. We're working on the building exterior work. We're making sure seeing how our upgrade units will go so that we can talk a little bit more about the asset management. But I am fully involved in it. I'm committed to taking care of our property and our investors.
That's wonderful. You know, it's nice when the tenants are happy for sure. Ken and I just did a road trip out to Indianapolis to look at our properties and talk to our tenants. So, you
Yeah.
know, we can relate.
It's one of the best feelings in the world. I mean, to be honest, I closed on the August 17th. It was $18 million, it's still kind of sinking into me. But just this 2 days ago, what she told me, I'm like, speechless. Just that I'm in a position where I can make such a difference and an impact on people's lives. And imagine once we do acquire more, it just magnifies from there.
That's fabulous. So in terms of your CapEx, so you're doing a lot of exterior work to start, then do you have plans for any of the interior work as well?
Yeah, and yes, we do. And part of this is I want to touch a subject. Like when you get into a property, you want to make sure you walk that property. You're going to be taking in your investors' money. So part of our LOI was we got an early access. It was a 5-day early access. Usually before you were not able to even get these type of terms, but way the market condition is, we can put in nice terms as a buyer. So we got a 5-day early access, no hard money down. We were able to walk the 10% of the property, so about 13 units, plus all the exterior. And we also hired a third-party management company. So we never want to try to save, nickel and dime this process. So we spent that, it's roughly $6,000. They came in, they walked the property, they document everything, and they give a what their, property condition, property assessment report. So once we got comfortable, that's when we had our 30 days to do the full due diligence. And I personally walked every single unit in that property to make sure my eyes, what are the real things going on in. So even for those 100% unit, we had hired that third party company as well. So within our CapEx, it is a 1981 property. The building, the roofing needs to be updated. Luckily, the HVAC systems about 2.5 years ago got upgraded for the whole property. So all we need to do is maintain them. So, but we do have a roofing expense. In Irving, the foundation kind of shifts. So you do have to have like a little bit of foundation work where you have to update some of the buildings. Then of course, when we do the loan assumption, your lenders, they also do a property assessment. So they have like some critical repairs that come out, nothing significant, but they do have some items, okay, add a van, accessible parking and things like that. So we have to make sure they give us a timeline on those. So within the first year or 90 days, we have to take certain actions. Otherwise, you will go in a technical loan default. So we make sure we work on those items first. So our property I mentioned to you was neglected initially with the prior ownership. The pool pump was green, muggy, and all that. So we're prepared to take those actions and get that fixed. We're already working on it. We already cleaned that up. And the buildings, we will start to repaint, it's a newer property actually alongside us. They're older units. Our units have central AC, the next door properties, they're charging more and they have like window AC units. So we just need to bring that curb appeal. We need to add our love into this, right? And ultimately and make the difference. And when we do our CapEx, right, let's go into a little bit about that into the interior units. You want to be working with your property management team hand to hand, not when you close. We started working with them 5 months before. They were ready. They knew what we were coming into. They knew the property. They've been doing analysis with her. They've been shopping comps with us. They were fully ready. And they had planned out what happens if we do a low upgrade, what happens if we do a mid-tier upgrade or a diamond upgrade, they call it, like what kind of rents can we collect. So you want to have that thing done, like what will a mid-tier involve? Black appliances, stainless appliances, countertops, right? Maybe upgraded faucets and fans. So you want to make sure you're really ready to go at the time of closing. You don't want to be looking into this after closing. You want to really get a jump on this. So we started implementing this business plan. Just to get down to it, we want to update 20% of this property. We want to demonstrate that we can collect these higher rents at the market above what we're saying. So in 3 to 5 year range, when we do go refinance, when we go do exit this property, we are able to demonstrate, hey, we can collect these rents, right? So, and we want to leave some of the meat on the bone. So 80% of the property will be for the next seller or next buyer coming up.
Gotcha. And when you did your underwriting, you were conservative, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. I want to attach a little bit, talk about the underwriting piece as well into this property. So when you people are starting to hear, taxes going crazy, insurance is doubling, and when we were getting into this, it was the truth. It went from 58,000 to 128,000 our insurance. So we underwrote it that. But by the time we got to closing, we were actually fighting it. We were doing the tax. We hired legal counsels. We were approaching different insurance carriers, and we were able to like get it from 58 to 78. So we got a significant amount of saving, but we never changed our underwriting. Of course, if I change it, it will show a bigger return. But what happens if next year the insurance does truly double, right? So we kept our underwriting as it is, even though we got a lower rate. So hopefully we can, of course, the goal is to deliver higher returns, right, to our investors, not to just what you're projecting minimally. So in the same way, all these, yeah, so you want to be conservative on your underwriting, on your vacancy, be truthful. What rents you're growing, what kind of work you're doing, other incomes growing, right? Like people will inflate those type of stuff. So you want to be really cautious um, in that part.
And who actually found the deal? Was it your partner?
Yes, it was my partner. That's I know we haven't talked about that was one of my things, like my partner. I actually met him in one of these bus tours and I started seeing him. He's been into big real estate for a long time and he really wanted to get into multifamily to save on taxes. So last year he had purchased outright himself. But this year, he's been doing it for such a long time. He wanted to do the syndication, but that's where I came in. So we just started analyzing deals together. And he was forwarding me. He had some broker connections also. And he was just forwarding me some of the deals, and we just started analyzing it together. And slowly, when you start working together, it may not be a partnership right away. We didn't know we were gonna like really do this together, but like we started talking every day. What's going on, where we are, what are we really looking for? We were talking about buy box. Do we align? Is he really looking for what I'm looking for? Can I really bring value to him? I mean, he's such a big high net worth person. Like, what am I gonna bring to him, right? Like you have to like really fit in. And when you really start looking at these and now the underwriting together and these deals, and maybe I have a higher strength in underwriting and he has more strength in relationship, right? So it was kind of like a match made. And then a few months later we're like, yeah, let's get an LOI in on this particular property, right? That's going after 100 deals first, like one after another, analyzing. We finally realized this is the deal and we should be partners.
Yeah, I think that's what Grant also said. Look at 100 deals and then you'll know the great deals.
Yes.
You'll know it when you see it. So great job there. So now you were part of the risk capital also. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's that mindset that you just have to do what it takes in order to bring a value to your partnership. And if you go in that mindset, like, you can't be like, oh my God, I only committed 50K and I'm not going to do anything more than that. It doesn't work like that in the real world. You just have to be there for your partners. So we had to put up escrow money, right? After our 5 days of early access, we had to put up a lot of, me and my partner put up over $500,000 of risk capital.
Mm.
But he put up a lot too. I put up a lot too. Whatever I could, I put it all together. But I tried to take action. Like if there was, and people probably underestimate what it takes as a risk capital. So you have your escrows that need to go out, right? Probably a significant amount of money, like 1 to 2% needs to go in as hard money. So it is a risk capital. We could potentially lose it if we don't close on that deal. But then there's other pieces to this. And it is hard to understand because when you go into these masterminds, these groups, Donna, they always talk about very high level. Find the deal, find the debt, do this, find the equity, and then you close the deal. Well, let me tell you, there's like 100, 200, 300 steps involved in the middle of all that, right? You gotta vet your attorneys. You gotta get into the cash flow portal. There's so many different variances that you have to set up, loan process, that there's like literally a list, and maybe we'll share that list with your audience as well. What it actually took, like what are the exact steps that you need to look for, because nobody really talks about it in any of these masterminds when you actually have to close a deal. But you require a transactional attorney who's going to be going back and forth between the seller's counsel and your stuff. So he costs money. You need a SEC attorney. And these are all costs up front prior to any acquisition fees. So somebody has to pay them. Right. And we need the SEC to work on our offering memorandum, PPM, all these legal documents that they need to get going. Your organization chart, if you're doing a loan assumption or anything, there's also a cost to that. There's almost 1% of your loan assumption fee that you got to come up out of your own pocket.
Mm.
So there's various costs. What about the webinars? I mean, these are high level costs, but what about these webinars? Even 60. So you have to pay all these kind of things out of your pocket. That does add up. But with that saying, we also got invested into our deal. So our own money got invested. You want to have skin in the game. Everybody hears that as a real estate. So my partners and I also had about $1 million into our own deal as well, because we, of course, believe in it. So that also goes as an LP investment.
So you'll get GP money and LP money. But yeah, if you can share that list with us, that would be incredible. I think a lot of people would get a lot of value out of that.
Yeah.
And so I know we talked a little bit about asset management before, but now you were doing capital raise. So talk a little bit about capital raise, your capital raise.
Yeah. So with these projects, like you just want to be involved wherever you can, wherever you have the opportunity to add risk capital, capital raising, loan guarantee, asset management. The more you get involved, the more you will learn, the more money you will make, right? So capital raising, it is a challenge, especially for your first deal. It is definitely a challenge. You want to start, and of course, I have made mistakes. It was my journey. Part of these lessons are you want to start early as possible. You want to engage with your investors. You want to start planting the seeds, and not only investors, you want to start talking to some even of the partners, right? Maybe we had some things like you don't want to approach them, even your partnership, potential other GPs, like 3 months down the road. You want to do that before you even find these deals. Who are you really want to partner with? Because they may have some other deals. Maybe they don't want to do a 506B or C. Maybe, you're setting your minimum investment at 75, but their investors do 50K. How they're appealing. Maybe you're split when we do our GPLP type of splits. Maybe it doesn't resonate with them what you're trying to underwrite to. So you want to have these discussions with the investors, with your potential partners, with anybody you can, and not delay that effort. So part of it was when I started, my capital raise journey into this deal, I knew I had my own list, right? Everybody got their own list in their mind. Either it's your family and friends. And when I started making my first call on it was like, oh, I don't want to deal with any banks. I don't do this. This is not me. But I'm willing to learn. So I spent another 30 minutes. I educated them the process, and they said, thank you very much. Well, after that call, I mean, as I'm a human being too, right? You get a little bit heartbroken. How is this ever going to happen? But on that same day, I had made 3 calls, who I was expecting to, but they got back to me, and all three of them had committed almost $1 million each.
Oh, wow.
So, you just have to go for it. I think I'm a very emotional person too. I had, ups and downs too, like listening, and there were so many other people. We cannot do this right now, not the right time, maybe next time. Maybe they're looking at my track record. It was my first multifamily deal, whatever it is. But so, invest that time for the investors and the potential partners early on. That is the key. But let me also tell you one key thing. Once you do close, in the last 2 weeks, I've been getting the same messages from those same family members. Oh man, I wish I did had joined you, but next deal 100% we're in. Oh my God. Or they're like, oh, we never even heard about this. I'm with you next deal, right? So the momentum starts to pick up. And it does, hopefully, it gets easier, right? And you also learn how to talk to people, how do you navigate these, how do you really explain somebody what type of investment this is. Some of them are nurses, they don't know about multifamily yet, let alone real estate type of stuff, right? And how do you talk to them? LP GPs, do they really know what these mean? So it is a fine tuning skill, and I'm still building on it. I learned from other mentors as well. I listen, I take those inspiration in, and I try to fine tune my pitch and how to talk to people. That is a skill that I'm continuously to work on as well.
Yeah, it is a skill for sure. And if there was one tip that you could just give someone now, beside, nurturing the relationship, but in terms of talking to people, what do you think gets them to hear you about these potential investments?
Yeah, I think, like, when you start looking at these type of things as a naturally, you start speaking these terms. So I would say keep it as layman as possible, be very basic, tell them, their general benefits on what they're doing, what they're making, and what are the tax benefits. But when you start going into different partnerships, they get very worried. People are worried in general about partners, right? They always
Mhm.
have this stigmatism. I mean, I even saw, I need to read your book. Even your title has something along that end, right?
That's right.
Uh, so we've all had some sort of partnerships that may have gone sour or something like that, but it's really important to just be upfront, use that basic terminology. That's what I would say. Get in front of them early on. Don't shy. You're gonna be helping them. That is a stigmatism in all of us, especially the new people who want to be GP, right? Upcoming, they're like, oh my God, how am I going to raise this money? I don't have track record. Just tell the people, why is this important? How are they going to make money? What is the benefit to them? And leave all the LP, GP, all these kind of things alone, LOIs, the NOIs, like stop using these terminologies. And the more you do it, I think you will get better. So the more you do it, that is, I would say, helps. The more I
Another
did it, the
golden
more
nugget.
I got better. Yeah.
Awesome. And so the last role in the GP stack, if you will, is the key principal. So talk a little bit about the loan balance guarantor role that you're participating in.
Yeah.
Then
So
we can
look,
open
when
it
you
up for
want to go on a
questions.
$10 million loan, you got to have that net worth. Somebody has to have that net worth, right? Otherwise, they're not able to approve you. Now, these are non-recourse loan. That is the beauty of it. We're running a business. So they evaluate. I didn't even have to share my credit report. It's amazing to me. I didn't even have to share my tax returns, right? You go buy a single family home. Do you know how many, like you probably, you're an investor too, how many Jones, you have, like, how many things you have to go through, how many hurdles and credit checks and all those income verifications. None
Mhm.
of that. So it's amazing, but you do got to have that net worth. You got to be liquid. So I would say, it really, people get on like, oh, I'm a GP on this team. I'm a GP on this team. From like putting it on a social media type of view, it's okay. hey, I'm a GP in 1,000 doors and I'm doing this, but you don't know, they may have like a 0.05 percentage as a GP, right? You don't know what true percentage of ownership do they really have.
Right.
So when you do the loan, that, we got on the agency debt. So you want to have somebody, of course, trustworthy, who's going to be the primary key principal. But when you are able to piggyback and able to sign on with them, it brings your credibility with the agency. It goes on your real resume. So in the 5 years, let's say 5 years down the road, you really, you build your net worth up, like now you're ready to scale your own business. Well, they're going to see, have you really managed 100+ unit property, 200+ unit property? And they check that through verification on your loan record. It's not just about, I was GP in 1,000 doors. So that's a critical piece.
Very interesting. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. So thank you for that tip. All right, so I would like to open this up for questions. Does anyone have any questions for Aman? Don't be shy. Ken, how about you?
No, he was very thorough. Yeah, you went delved deeply into all the aspects, so I thought it was very informative. So thank you.
Thank you.
Jason, I'm calling everybody out here, but I know. Any questions?
Hey, Aman. I'm Jason, living in Oklahoma. Been in real estate for a couple of years. Been following the commercial multifamily for about a year. There's so much that I'm learning, and I'm just now getting to where I feel like I can actually have a conversation about it and kind of describe what I don't understand instead of just not understanding anything. And I was wondering about the loan assumption fee and what else is your risk money going for? Like in a single family, I know that it's basically, it shows that, you're serious, it gets their attention and, you can get it under contract. What all does it go for in a commercial deal, like something like this, like a $10 million deal? If you're like, in this instance, you're actually assuming the loan, you're not getting new debt, but how does that work? Can you explain how that works?
Sure. So the prior owner had a loan on it, which it was an agency debt at 10.6 million. We acquired the property at 16.3 million. So that 10.6 was a assumable loan, and you want to verify that through the lender and the verification of these docs that it is in fact assumable. So when you do assumption, there's usually a 1% fee. That 1% fee is usually collected at the time of closing. But prior to that, there's an application fee for the master servicer. And that usually turns around about $30,000 that you have to submit right away in order to even start any loan process. Like literally, you would fill out your name and you have to wire them a 30K check. So that is one of their fee for the loan. And when you close, you have to pay another total 1% of that total assumption amount that you're doing. So we had roughly about $106,000 that we had to give them. And that is what they would tell you. But if you look at my settlement statement, there's a lot more. There's transfer fee, $15,000 from the prior ownership to the current. Now, all that kind of stuff, luckily, it is done right at the closing. So, you would have had enough capital raised where you can actually pay them from that account. But your first initial loan assumption your application fee would be roughly 25 to 30K in order to even get the process started. So that's one of your fees for the loan assumption. The second other parts they would add is like, if they need to do additional environmental studies, if they need to send the building engineers on site. So they may charge you a little bit amount of extra money on top of that. And, of course, with the legal counsel, they may even charge you for that as well. So we would need to keep on injecting money into this deal. It's not significant, but I would say 30 to 40K for your first assumption fee that you need to have ready. The remaining amounts you could, like I said, take care of in your closing settlement. So apart from this, your risk money, you would also need to pay 1 to 2% of your purchase price into the deal. So we had 365,000 for a $16 million deal that went into our escrow for the seller that we had, put in our escrow until the time of closing. And even that, we had, various dates, critical dates. So right after our first early access of 5 days, we were injecting 150K into the escrow account. At the end of our 30 days, after our full due diligence got completed and we were satisfied with the deal, we injected another like 200 and some $1,000, equaling to the 365. With that, so that's just for the seller, right, in our escrow. But we have our transactional attorney who deals with the seller counselor, and he's representing you. And we also have our SEC attorney who's preparing your loan documentation, these offering memorandums in order to actually syndicate a deal. So that's a big thing too. You want to make sure you vet these attorneys. Can you really have a working relationship with them? For example, Jason, I got a referral for this SEC attorney, and he was like 20 some $1,000s to prepare documents. But me and my partner got on the call with him. First call, it felt like he was interviewing me for a job or something. Like I'm about to write him a $20,000 check. I'm about to do all this work. And he just like interviewed us. Like, are we even capable of doing this? And we got off the phone and we're like, what just happened here? Right. Then we found our own. We went through other referrals. Referral is the key. That is the key. We found amazing. You may have, of course, find some bad referrals, or like you gotta vet them, right? It's not just like 100%. You want to talk to these people, like clean up, and especially like when you don't know it. Oh my God, ask the questions. Like even my property management team right now, I don't care if I look dumb. It's my responsibility to make sure I act on it, right? Like today, when they were asking, they had a thing about unit transfer fee. I just could not recall, like, why is that being charged? What does that represent? I asked, I don't shy about it. So you want to ask these questions. So we went to the second SEC attorney, and man, he held our hand. He got his whiteboard out on the Zoom, told us how a typical structure should be set up. And he's like, okay, we can do Wyoming registrations. We can do this. This is how you should put your asset management company. This is, he literally drew it all out for us at the end of the call. I mean, we didn't even get off the call. We're like, we want to hire you. Right. And it was like that. So you want to vet these, doesn't matter anybody who it is, vet them, ask them questions. So that was our additional cost that we had to incur. We had to incur all the due diligence teams. You don't want to take the responsibility. You want to have somebody thorough who does this as a business, right? Like who does this every day in and out. So we hired a third party company. That was roughly $6,500, where they walked each and every unit with us. They brought the inspectors, they had building engineers, they collected bids for us.
Wow.
Like if you do need a roof, right? Like what does the roof cost? They collected bids for us so we can kind of get an understanding going into this project.
Very thorough.
One last thing was the portals. So, we also vetted these portals, like where you actually collect people's investors' money, where you would do the distributions and all those kind of things. There's so many various programs and applications out there. Well, what are the costs associated with it? What's going to go happen? They usually do it based on the amount of capital you raise. So in our deal, we raised 8 million, and it was about roughly $3,000 for the first year, and it's going to go a little bit more up since we got a discount. But that $3,000 had to come out of our pocket initially in order to set up this deal.
Okay, all of that was risk money.
All that it goes as risk money. So if we don't close the deal, for certain reasons, I mean, we would lose out on this capital.
Right. Would you get
your insight?
Yes. Yeah. This is great. Would you get your property management company? You said that you had already begun talking with them early on in the process, whenever you and your partners were actually looking at the deal and going to get it, or deciding that you could take it down, and this is something that you wanted to do, was an endeavor you wanted to undertake. Would you get your property management company to help do the due diligence, or were you hiring a separate third-party company that only does that? Like, who would you, or who did you hire for that?
Yeah,
And
so
did it
let's
work out?
talk about that. You want to leverage your team. I'm a big person on resources. Leverage everybody, man. You know, that is the biggest key thing. Even our property management team, we did leverage them on financial reconciliations because they know what they're looking at, right? This is their day in and out job. So even selecting it, it's so important to choose the right company. If it's too big, are they really going to go pay attention to your 100-unit property? Or are they going to work on somebody who owns 4,500 units that they're managing, right? So you want to fine tune your selection on who you're going to work with. Like our, for example, is a mid tier. They run about 3,800 units. All their focus is inside Dallas. So they're very specialized. They know the contract, they know the vendors. We had a working prior relationship. My partner, who has another multifamily, they're also running his. So they're about 30 minutes away. So we already had this working engagement, but we did interview one or two more, but we stick with the ones that we were comfortable with. And especially on the rate, right? Like we were paying 3.5%. That was good. We knew the team, we knew who was coming on board. I started off telling you guys it's so important to get the right leasing agent on site, right? So you want to make sure all these teams are vetted, and they're properly in place. But you want to make sure they're involved in their due diligence. Are we missing phone numbers? Are we missing, they also looked at leases with us. Half of the paperwork was not even in compliance. So they knew this 3 months ago. So they started taking action on it right away, making sure we're in compliance, right? I mean, maybe the prior ownership got lucky, but we don't want to be in trouble with the city, enforcing these codes. So these people know the best. They
Hmm.
know the eviction process. And if they're really determined, are they really inputting it? Do they give concessions out? Do they wait like 60 days even to just evict? In Texas, if third day people don't pay, they need to start that process. There's no like, we're still running a business. We need to make a community, but we're still running a business. So you would kind of you want to understand your property management team. Can they take these certain actions, and do they just take it lightly, right? Or not? So they were on top of it. They knew the paperwork coming in. They had a plan in place. They also, like I mentioned to you, they had mid-tier up diamond upgrades. It's called an operational budget, which they create for you. And you also match that with your underwriting. Is everything in line? So you want them involved early on as possible, right away.
Any other questions, Jason?
No, that's good. I'll let, if anybody else has any questions.
All right.
I'm gonna also put my email address here if anybody wants to reach out to me. I got started in this journey. I was blessed to meet the right people, and I hope to be here for you guys as well on anything. You guys can shoot me a message and hop on a call, do whatever we need to do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Definitely appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, we have 12 more minutes. Hawk, you have any questions? You there? How about Brandy? Calling everybody out.
Hi there. Thanks, Donna. Hi, Aman. Thank you for this. This has been helpful. I'm kind of in the same boat you are. I got started with Grant Cardone last December. In fact, just like you did. I saw a video and I thought, who is this guy? He's kind of cheesy and maybe not sincere. And I started doing some digging and said, all right, I'll go to a real estate summit and see how it goes. So I'm still in the process of underwriting, networking, trying to find a deal, etc. I haven't. I guess my question would be, what exactly, you mentioned how you found your partner, and it wasn't really necessarily that you knew right away you were going to be partners. There's been a few people I've clicked with that I've been networking with that I see again and again, but Is there anything like intentional that you sought out, or was there an aha moment when you thought, oh yeah, this is the person?
Yeah, Randy, obviously we're all really eager to just do deals, right? Like especially our first one. And when you start talking to multiple people, I think it's first important to know what you want to accomplish, what type of role you want to do. And then as you're like, you mentioned you even connected to some people, really understand what they're looking for and what type of role are they looking for. Because if you are just two underwriters, well, who's going to run the asset? Who's going to raise the capital? Who has the net worth? And these type of discussions are so important to have. People usually neglect getting into deeper conversations, or maybe they're like, doing it at a higher level surface, but it's really, really super important to just be upfront. Hey, what are you looking for? What can you bring? And especially as you like, okay, man, I really want to work with this person. Maybe he's a great operational and I can bring in capital raising and we can make this perfect match, right? Well, even in that sense, can they really devote, if it's like an asset manager, can they really devote their time? Like I moved down here, right? I'm fully devoted to it, but who else is going to be near the boots on ground? Like you have to be so clear and upfront right away. Because if you're not upfront or they're not upfront, I mean, it's not going to work out anyways. So you have to be so upfront, just be very clear, especially on the money part. I mean, usually people have a lot of mixed emotions with those. People may say, oh, I'll bring $1 million in. Well, what happens if they don't? What happens if they bring half of it? What are you going to do? Right? Like, is their percentage going to go down? Those type of discussions are really important to have in the beginning. And I think the more clear you are, you will find that right partner because you just don't want two underwriters or five underwriters or five asset management sitting there trying to do a deal. And who's going to put up that risk capital? Who's going to get on the loan? I mean, everybody will be struggling. And it's just a recipe for disaster at that point. So as you start to handpick pick, partners, just have that upfront discussion with them, what you're looking for and what they're looking for.
If you don't mind me asking, how many people are on your GP table for the deal that you referenced?
Yeah, we have four main GPs, and then we also have an investor relation who's helping us, of course. So we have a lead sponsor. He's the person who found the deal. He sourced the deal. He had the broker connections. He also, of course, has a higher net worth, so he was able to sign on to as a primary loan guarantor. He also put in his capital and also raised capital. So he was the main lead GP. I'm the co-sponsor. I also did all those roles, but just getting into this game, um, I have a little bit less ownership than him. Then we have our other two main GPs who have also brought in capital, and they're also, providing their guidance on the acquisition part on our business plan. So total, all in all, we have four GPs. We have a very clear, distinct roles, who's doing what. So there's no mix up on that. Like I am the full asset manager on responsible for that on site. We have a full investor relation. Part of it, it's like getting into your first deal. It's so critical that can make you and break you. And we wanted to have this dedicated person as an investor relation who's going to be doing these monthly calls, sending these weekly updates, engaging with our investors. Because how are we going to do a second deal and so on? And these are our family, friends, acquaintances, from our network that we have who have invested. So we want to stay in touch with them. We want to deliver to them. So it's so important to make sure your roles and responsibilities are defined. And we actually also captured that into our legal document. So one of the things, Randy, you will see is if you do get an opportunity to join a GP team, there may be 9, 10 GPs, and that's okay. But you want to make sure your responsibilities are legally defined. It should not be up in the air. It should not be any of those kind of things. It should be who's running that asset, who's running those calls, who's responsible for what. So we had very clear discussions on those type of stuff, and we captured it into our legal documents. Because if you don't have that talk front, your partnership, it's just, you're going to get into some issues at some point later on.
Yeah, I agree. That was smart. I hear a lot of people that don't put any sort of formal operating agreements in place, and I just don't understand that, because I mean, at a bare minimum, you need to understand what happens if one of you guys wants out, or if you want to dissolve, or if there's a death, or there's a lot of what ifs. So that's very good advice. Thank you.
Well, on top of that, per the SEC, when you do your syndication, some of that stuff does go in automatically. Like if you, for example, an LP investor, like there are rules and regulations against it. Like how do they transfer an ownership? So for example, if an LP does have they want to get out of something, they want to transfer it to somebody. Well, first the management has the right in order to take their share, and if we don't want to, then they're able to proceed if we allow it. So there are rules and regulation in that type of scenario, but we went a little bit beyond that, where we added in our own lines as addendum exactly the responsibilities that the GP team is working on, clearly defining them.
That's smart.
Very interesting. All right. May I ask you to put the links in the chat once again? So, I mean, we really thank you so much for this incredibly insightful session here. I think.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you, Ken. Hey, you started off with a quote. I like to end with a quote too. It's actually Indian president. I heard this, and honestly, I resonate with this quote so much. It is the true reason why I am where I am, how I close my deal or anything like that. It's very small. So you can we all have dreams, but you can turn your dreams into thoughts. And when you turn your dreams into thoughts, they turn into action. And that is the key to it. And if you have this thought recurring in your mind day in and out, you will take action. So don't just let it be a dream. Like, give a true thought to it. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. And your journey to GP, making the big moves. And you heard about his big moves right here. And I think you didn't even mention that you're still working full-time too, right? Are you?
I'm transitioning out of it. Yes. I'm full-time getting into real estate.
All right. Awesome.
May I ask one question?
Sure.
Yes.
I'm an investor. So basically one of my favorite things that I like to ask about is return on investment and over what period of time?
Yeah. So in our typical multifamily deals, when we take a look at it, we want to, you study the market. Like in our current deal, what's the returns? Our particular deal had 6% cash on cash. And when you have 6%, that may be significantly low for some people. Sorry, what was that?
There was somebody talking. I muted. Yeah.
So we have 6% cash on cash. Typically, you would do a 2x return. At least, when you're going into a deal, you don't want to do a 1.5x. Otherwise, that deal is probably not working. So when you do your underwriting, you want to hit certain benchmarks. We look for like a 2x at least multiple. And of course, you can deliver. These are not preferred returns, so you can deliver more. But you want to hit your at least your conservative numbers, and does that deal work? So you would want to do the 2x multiple. You would want to do at least 6 to 7% cash on cash in this current market right now. That's what's going on. And then of course we have our tax appreciation benefits that are not accounted. That's extra to each individual situation. Our exit plan, for the investors is 3 to 5 years. If we can implement our business plan the way it's currently going, we would look to do a refi, and we would do at least a 70% return back to the investors and always keep them in our deal. That's one key thing. You would hear other syndicators, you would want to understand their structure. Are they doing like crazy waterfall methods? You probably heard them. If, like, after they deliver certain value to you, their GP team is going to make a higher percentage, and so on, so on. So we don't want to do none of that. You want to be clear and upfront with your investors. They put in their money with you. There's a reason. You got to give them value. So that's just my suggestion. Please stay away from these crazy waterfall methods. You learn from those, who is it benefiting? So if we do a refi, we're keeping our investors. It's an infinite cash flow until we exit that deal. But typically it is a 3 to 5 year hold. So either we'll do a refi, depending on market situation, we will look to, after we implemented our business plan, we would look to exit that deal and sell.
Thank you for that. Karen, any other questions?
Yes, I would still like to know what the percentage return is on that 3 to 5 year investment.
It's 2x your money. So if you had invested 100K, you all in all inclusive, you would have received 200K back to you. So that includes your quarterly distributions. So it's 6% annually. So that would split out into quarterly distributions. That would include your, if you are just an LP, so that's all you would get, your quarterly distributions and also your appreciation and your tax benefits. And your appreciation will come into play when we do it's called a capital event. So it has to be either refi or exit. So your 100K will equal to 200K as an LP investor. If you are a GP, you would be making that 6% on the amount of capital that you submitted, you invested, plus your percentage of the share that you have confirmed with your partnership on the split that you're doing. So let's say you're doing an 80-20 split, 80,000 will go to limited partners, $20,000 will go to the general partners, and based on your percentage, you would get allocated that. And that also comes to you quarterly. And if you were doing the asset management, that amount of money will also come to you monthly. Then, your returns as a GP can go literally from 5x to 20x, depending on the type of roles and the amount of money, the type of deal it is. But as a general partner, you would 5x to 10x, 20x your money, depending on, the amount of capital.
Over what time frame with the GP?
What was that?
Over what time
frame? You said before 3 to 5 years for the others, but what time frame would it be for those 5Xs that you were talking about?
Okay, so for the 5x to 10x, GPs also get the same amount of money at the same time when we pay out our LPs, right? We're going to be doing quarterly distribution. So let's say I take $100,000. I'm going to send $80,000 to all the LP. And of course, just keep in mind, our money is also invested as a LP. That 20,000, the remaining is getting distributed also quarterly. So that you're getting right away as a GP. You're also getting your asset management fee regularly. That's also coming to you. Your majority of the money, even as a GP, your appreciation is always going to come at the end when we do refinance or when we exit. So even as a GP, it takes 3 to 5 years, but you would be making money alongside of the LP investors those first 3 years as well. You will just be making a higher return.
Right. And it also depends, I think, if the key principal generally gets money at the close. Is that right?
So when you do your closing, you have an option, and you should have this discussion prior to your closing. You should make sure your partners are in line with that. Your escrow money that you have inputted, all your risk money, either you're going to keep it in the deal or you're going to withdraw it at the time of closing. So that money comes back out to you and you get credited for it, for your risk capital. You would be allotted additional GP shares for it. But you can withdraw it if you had these type of talks beforehand. So at the time of closing, you can potentially take out all your risk money. And as a GP, there's also acquisition fee. So usually it's the 2% of your total purchase price that you have done. So based on what your allocation is, that also can come out right away at the time of closing. Particularly if you're a brand new GP, like in our particular deal, I left all my acquisition fee, my own risk capital, my own, because I love this deal, right? I'm into it. I'm invested into it. So I have my own skin and game into it. So I left all my fees and stuff invested back into the deal to show the confidence to the investors. But if you have that talk between your partnership, you are allowed to take it out at the time of closing, the acquisition fees and stuff.
Karen, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did.
All right, and I can walk you through it, how the GP table works if you need another time. All right, well, our time is up, but this was such an informative session. I thank you so much, Aman, for being here, and just super excited. There will be a recording of this in the next few days on YouTube with @ hookup with real estate. Can put the links in the chat. If you want to stay connected here and join other sessions, our sessions are monthly. The next one is on the 27th of September. So we invite you back.
Thank you so much, Donna.
Thank you,
so
Aman.
much,
That was
Ken.
a
I appreciate it. I appreciate you
wealth
guys.
of
Thank you so
knowledge.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it
Thank
was.
you.
Thank you too. All right, I am going to stop the recording right now.